Hey everyone, welcome to ACAB True Crime. I am a trained clinical psychologist. I am really into true crime as well, and so this is my channel. Thank you for being here. Today I'm going to talk about a case that I have been pretty interested in over the last few weeks, and figured I'd just give a presentation of the case and just some of the information that I have found that I'll highlight just through my research on it, and then give some of my thoughts and opinions. And anyways, yeah. So thank you for being here. If you wouldn't mind, please subscribe and hit like. That'd be awesome. I'm like trying to get to 500 subscribers by the, let's say, end of this year. Um, so it's not too many more. It's only like 175 more. So, but yeah, so let's just jump right into it. Uh, so yeah, this is a case that is taking place in Kentucky, in eastern Kentucky, and it involves a courthouse sheriff and a judge, and it's an incident where in the judge's chambers, the sheriff, who was like in charge of all the security at that courthouse, ended up taking out his service weapon and taking the life of the judge. So it was Sheriff uh, Sean Mickey Stines, and he's 43, and he's married and has a couple of kids, and he took the life of the judge, who is Judge Kevin Mullins. He's 54. He also has a family, and yeah, they had each of them worked together for a long, long time, knew each other really well. Apparently, it's like a very small town that everyone lives in. It's Letcher County, Kentucky. So it's at the Letcher County Courthouse. So what they know so far that I think are like the most important things to remember in the case is that actually they were both the judge and the sheriff that were involved in another court case that was going on at the courthouse. It was actually a civil case, and I think the judge was overseeing a case where the sheriff had been charged, and I think he was being sued. But this also was connected to another criminal case that was going through the system at like that time or like the year beforehand, where the individual that was involved with it, actually got found guilty of like all the things that they were accusing him of, which I'll get more into that. I'll show you like a more detailed article that goes over that incident, but I do think that it might be pretty relevant to this case, but I don't know for sure. Obviously, like all of this is speculation, and I'm also not giving any like for sure, diagnoses or anything like that going, as I talk about stuff, but it's just kind of all my opinion and all allegedly. So, but yeah, they ended up, so it was the judge and the sheriff, I guess, had gone out to lunch earlier that day. It was on Wednesday, September 19th, and they went out with a couple of other people, and then they came back and from lunch, and like, oh no, I guess at lunch, the judge said to the sheriff, should we talk about this like back in my chambers? Like, kind of like, do you want to meet one-on-one and talk about whatever they were talking about? And like kind of like the equivalent to like, let's take this offline type of deal. So then it sounds like they all got back to the courthouse, which was just like a couple blocks away from where they all had lunch. There wasn't like specific, I don't think we know specifics about who was actually at the lunch, but it sounds like they have been, like the investigation has been in touch with them. There's an actual video of it, of the incident that took place, and it doesn't have sound on it. I don't think I'll probably show that on here unless it's like during the middle of the testimony that I want to play, but it is a pretty messed up video, and it just shows the two of them, and it's like the judge behind a desk, and they're talking like over the desk between the sheriff and the judge, and it looks like the sheriff takes out a cell phone and like calls someone, and then he takes it and then or like puts his phone down and then grabs the judge's phone. Like, I think it looks like the judge just like maybe gives it to him or something, but then he calls a number on the phone, and then he puts on the phone, the judge's phone, and then he takes out his like service and like ends up um, 4 times or something. And you can actually see this like judge starting to like go behind his desk and like cower behind his desk. And then it looks like the sheriff goes back and like grabs his jacket and then like starts to head out. And then he looks over in the area like where he had already just, this guy like 4 times or something, and he must have still been moving or like making noise or anything or something. And then he goes and he like finishes him off. I think he like another like time or two. Which actually, like, I have been listening to like a couple of podcasts, like just I don't know recently, and I can't remember exactly what it's called, but the podcast was like they had different interviews. Like I think it was called like Other People's Lives or something. But like they have a bunch of different interesting people that they talk to. But one of the episodes was talking to someone who had been injured in a mass incident, and it was actually a survivor from the Orlando nightclub where there was like 50 or 60 people that were even more that were injured, and this guy was like injured super bad, but he told about actually it was super up or messed up or whatever, but he ended up also, yeah, I don't know, like the last 2 videos that I made were about Marcellus Williams Khalifa, who, if you haven't checked them out, you should. Like, I think the last one only got like 3 views, which is, I feel like YouTube must be suppressing those videos. But I did talk a lot and say like a bunch of words and didn't think about like necessarily what I was saying. So I'm gonna try to be like more careful. So yeah, they shit. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so the guy was like in the bathroom, and he was like hiding behind one of the stalls, and he said that there was like 15 or 20 people that were in there. And the guy, like, I don't know, I remember when it all went down, hearing about how they found a bunch of people and like saved them from the bathroom area, and like, but they like were afraid that there was like other like landmines, like, or similar types of like explosives like around, and they weren't sure, so then they had to like tunnel into the bath, something crazy. And so like a bunch of other people like ended up not surviving because it took like 3 hours to get to them, and they were all like like bleeding out, and like, so, but this guy was like in there, and he like almost didn't make it, and he like 3 or 4 times or something, maybe even more. But he said that the guy came in there, like the perpetrator came in there, and he threw the stalls. And the dude said like a bunch of them like were covered back, like, and all of them were kind of like on top of each other. So, and he was like one of the people that was like more on top, and he got hit like in his leg a couple of times. But the guy like didn't bother to like kick down the bathroom door or anything, and he left. But then there was like a woman who had been like injured and was like freaking out, that was in the bathroom, like one of the groups of people in the bathroom. And I think it was like he said that he heard the guy going back out and walking around, but then this woman just started freaking out, and they were all telling her to like be quiet, like, he won't come back, like, we don't want him to know that, like, just make him think that we're not alive anymore. And like she just like apparently like could not control herself, and the guy came back in, and he ended up like her, and then back through like a bunch of more stalls, and this guy got hit again like in his neck, and that's like when he really started to like lose a lot of blood. But he was like with his friend who's like a nurse, like an urgent care like ER nurse, and so she was like able to like focus on him and like help tourniquet. I mean, she's trying to help other people too, but like a lot of people were like hurt a lot worse. So, but that just kind of surprised me. I was like, wow, that's like, I mean, I'm not trying to blame anyone, like, people can't necessarily like control how they react in those types of situations, but that sucks. Like, she's not alive anymore because that's the way that she, like, just her body naturally reacted. And there was like another story too about like on that same podcast of this kid who was in a school, and he said that he had been hanging out with these 2 guys, like, and it was like a study hall, and then he decided they were going to go up to the like library and play games or something on the computers, but then he decided to like go do something else. So he started walking like another way, and then that's when like all the alarms started going off, and they kind of heard like some popping or something. He was like out in the hallway with like a couple of other just stranglers, and like there was like a teacher that like made them all hurry and like rush back in. And so he ran into this classroom, and there was like a couple of other people that I knew there, and he said they were all like back up again, kind of similar, like fashion from the Orlando incident, but like a bunch of them were kind of like all back in a corner together. I think that was like their drill. And then it sounds like they heard the guy like come up, and like they heard him like going across like down the hallway, and then they heard him stop, like him stop and then knock at the window or like the door. And then he said one of the kids that was like in their like group actually got up and like started walking towards the door to like open it. And everyone was like, "What are you doing? Like, come back. Like, what the hell is wrong with you?" He's like, "I still to this day, like, don't know what that kid was thinking. Like, why would he do that? Like, it was obvious, like, to not, but it's just like, it's like a trauma response, or like you're just like in shock. But still, it's just kind of like, it's just interesting, like in a like psychological way, just to think about like, how different people respond to those types of things, and why, like, what conditioning they might have had beforehand, and blah blah blah. Anyways, so back to the Kentucky incident. I don't even remember how I got off on that, but and just advice to everyone to, if you're ever involved in an emergency situation like that, where someone is just kind of going postal, like, just act, but don't move. And I think you're more likely to survive. I feel like I remember hearing that in another like case or two too. So, yeah, and then we end up finding later that, so then he walks out of the room and he goes out the side door of the courthouse, and then everyone inside the courthouse was like, had heard the, and like then went to go check up on it, and like obviously found the judge the way that he was, but they were kind of freaking out. But then the sheriff like came back in and turned himself in and was like, "Yeah, that was me," and he like turned over his service weapon, and they arrested him and like put him in jail like without bond. But then then they made another preliminary hearing, and they scheduled for the 25th, September 25th. So like the actual incident took place on September 19th, I believe. Then the preliminary hearing took place on the 25th. So, and nothing has really like happened much in between, I don't think. What the rumor is that, or it might have been confirmed, is that like I think it is actually the person that was on the phone call, or that was like called by the sheriff and by the like in the judge's phone, was the sheriff's daughter. So and it's weird. I'm going to show a video real quick, because there's this video of him and his daughter in his car, his cop car, his work car, and they're singing the Bob Marley song, I Sheriff, which I was like, that's weird, because I did actually think about that song like when this happened. I was like, that's kind of funny. It's like the opposite or whatever, and it's just ironic to then see this, video. Oh, what the hell?
Now, in bombshell testimony, a police officer is revealing there was a dispute between Judge Kevin Mullins and the Kentucky Sheriff, Sean Mickey Stines, involving the sheriff's teenage daughter. This lip-syncing video of the sheriff and his daughter shows them goofing around as she sits on the back of his police car. Their choice of songs, of all things, I, the sheriff.
Yeah, so that's kind of weird, in my opinion. It just seems ironic. I'm going to read the judge's obituary first, and then I'm going to read you something else that is associated with the sheriff. Okay, so it says, Letcher County District Judge Kevin R. Mullins passed away Thursday, September 19, 2024, at the age of 54. He in his chambers of the courthouse, where he spent his career working to help people. He was born June 25th, 1970, in Pikesville, to Patsy Holbrook Mullins of Norton, Virginia, and the late Walter Russell Mullins. Kevin was a member of the Hemphill Church of Christ. Which, question, does anyone else know like anything about that church? Try to do like a little bit of research, because I swear I remember that coming up in like some of the stuff that I remember researching about Idaho 4, and like some of the religions that people were around and like involved with over in that area. So if anyone remembers, let me know. It says, besides his mother, he is survived by his wife, Kimberly, 2 daughters, Maya and Ava, 1 sister, Kimberly Bledsoe, and 3 nephews and 1 niece. So, and also I think it's the like DA, or the equivalent to a Kentucky DA, like in Kentucky to a DA, is this judge's brother-in-law. Like he married this guy's sister, which is like, I think the people who they just listed. Except actually it says 1 sister, Kimberly Bledsoe, but then it doesn't list her husband, and usually they do like in parentheses. So I wonder if they're separated. But he removed himself from the case because, oh my God, that's interesting. he's like, yeah, our kids play together like they're nephews or like they're brothers, not like they're cousins. So that's pretty weird. I don't know. I guess it's not that weird, but I guess it's notable. Anyways, Kevin had served as district court judge for 14 years, first being appointed by Governor Steve Beshear in 2009 to fill a judicial vacancy and then elected to a full term in 2010. He went on to be reelected 3 times, dedicating more than a decade to his community in his role as judge. He began his law career after earning a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science from University of Kentucky, followed by his JD, which is like law degree from law school at University of Louisville, and that he was admitted to the Kentucky Bar in '95. And then he served as the Assistant Commonwealth's Attorney for 9 years, which I'm pretty sure is the same position that maybe his ex brother-in-law currently has, maybe, I don't know. But then it says he was in private practice and then was also a solo practitioner. So I'm interested. It'd be interesting to know more about that. But from what like I'm gonna read to you next, like I do think that the judge sounds to me like a really stand-up dude. Like he sounds like he um really cared about people, and that like the people in the community that interacted with him appreciated it and respected him, which I think says a lot, like, about a community, especially if it's small town and stuff. So, I mean, you never know, but it just sounds like you can even just tell through the amount of years that he's put into these things, um, that it sounds like, I don't know, because I don't think you make that much money, like, as a judge, unless you're getting, like, bribes from people, which I do feel like, and that I might mention, or that it comes up later, just, I guess I'll just share right now, is like, to remember that like when it does come to these small towns and like these government agencies, it's so easy to be corrupt with that shit. And like you can, I feel like once it starts getting so like bureaucratic, like you can start kind of like covering up the way that money is spent, or like where it's routed, or like if you have a huge contract for something, like you have a best friend who does that specific thing that they're contracting, like you might be more apt to like want to like find in this favor if you're deciding between one option or the other. Do you know what I mean? So like, I don't know. Anyways, so from the outset, as a judge, Kevin recognized that incarceration alone was insufficient in addressing the opioid epidemic in the Commonwealth. He pioneered a local protocol focused on linking people to treatment services early in their involvement with the justice system, leading a transformative shift in how justice could support recovery. This innovative protocol not only provided pathways to recovery, but also gained recognition statewide, impacting the lives of over 20,000 people by providing access to inpatient treatment services. A passionate advocate for recovery efforts across Kentucky, the Supreme Court appointed Kevin to the newly formed Kentucky Judicial Commission on Mental Health in 2022. He worked to drive systemic changes for justice-involved people affected by substance use disorders, mental illness, and intellectual or developmental disabilities. As chairman of the Commission's Treatment and Access Committee, Kevin played a pivotal role in reshaping the court's approach to behavioral health. His leadership extended to responsive education to support treatment and opioid recovery efforts, Restore leadership team, which introduced the recovery-oriented system of care model to the Kentucky court system. He also served on a certification advisory committee tasked with updating special court administrative procedures and establishing a statewide certification process. So, like, I know that sounds like a bunch of mumble jumble, and it kind of is. Which I hope, honestly, like, no offense to this, but if I have a obituary, like, don't let it sound like this. You know what I mean? But anyways, it is all really cool stuff that it's like all kind of like a mouthful, but and it is like weird because it's always like these special committees and da 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 da. It's just ways for people, like, I don't know, lift themselves up, or like, pat themselves on the back a little bit, whatever. But these people do actually have the like power to change a lot of these things. So it is nice when you get like a good one into a position where that you can trust. But yeah, so I guess I also have been like involved in some of these things, like from a like forensic psych background. Like I participated in a couple of special committees in Minnesota, for like our like Senate, the Minnesota Senate, and some of like the statutes that were being written, and it was like really similar. It sounds like where it's alternative to incarceration, and like figuring out like what actually constitutes certain people, to like what people need in order to get certain services. And not all states have that, and like I don't know much about like Kentucky or the South, but like I do feel like I've heard that Minnesota is really well known for having really good programs like that. But I feel like the South not so much. So it sounds like he was probably pretty progressive, and I think that's like really honorable to and like respectable to for him to like have like the compassion and like the awareness to what his actual clients were probably dealing with. So but again, I don't know, him personally, so I have no clue, but it does sound like he worked on good things. So it says that Kevin led the court system's implementation of Senate Bill 90, having his court serve as the first active pilot site for the behavioral health conditional dismissal program, which offers an alternative to incarceration for eligible defendants with behavioral health conditions. So, like, that sounds almost like exactly like a committee that I worked on like a few years ago in Minnesota, and it's interesting, like it's like kind of a combination of all these different people from everywhere, like across the state, and like different positions of power, like people that are behind like Minnesota Department of Health, and then having like the head sheriff like from like Ramsey County and Hennepin County, like both Minneapolis and St. Paul, like show up and be participating in the rewriting of these bills and statutes and stuff. And it's and it is kind of a big deal to like be like, hey, we're going to start making sure that these types of crimes like don't get routed this certain way, or we need to make sure that they're actually being responded to appropriately and like in the best way possible, like if that's what we're actually all here for in terms of like bettering your community and all of that. Like I just feel that it should be like really important to be taken into consideration what is actually going to work best, and which is what options are the most like humane, I guess. Like incarceration is not really humane, and it doesn't actually like help much. So it says Kevin's passion for helping others extended far beyond his district. He became a sought-after speaker at the state and national level, sharing his insights on supporting those grappling with substance use disorders and mental illness. His colleagues deeply respected him, and his loss will be profoundly felt throughout Kentucky's court system. So I thought that was pretty, interesting, and makes it sound like he really probably, did a good job at his job. So then the next thing that I'm going to show you guys is like a little bit of information about a court case that was happening at the same time that involved both the judge and the sheriff. And there's an article from the local newspaper that describes it pretty well. I'm going to read you this article. I think it's important to note that this case like is definitely associated with S trafficking, and it's concerning, especially I think with all of the other like S trafficking that we have seen, and like same with like trafficking too. These all kind of could overlap. Like there's been a lot of arrests, like and busts of huge like crime networks, like the Mexican like mafia, basically like M13, I think, and then street gangs, and like Hell's Angel type people and stuff. So no, there's been like a lot of busts. There was one in Idaho, and then there was like one in Arizona. I think there was like one down in Florida. And this is like huge networks of stuff. Like so, and I do feel like it is an environment where you're like as a law enforcement officer coming up against like a lot of these networks. So it becomes easy to get bribed or like switch sides for some of these places, especially because honestly, like the way that the law enforcement like community is set up in America, like does not make sense. There's like all these different levels. Like there's the feds, there's the state level, there's the county level, like, and depending on what, like, and then everyone's like all weird and lucky dudes like fighting, being like, no, that's my district, not like territorial type of shit. All right, so it is by the Mountain Eagle, which is like a local newspaper that sounds like seems pretty legit. They definitely, I so far have seemed to do really good reporting, and like the most detailed information that I have been able to find, like between a lot of the different articles that I've read. So anyways, this was published on January 10th of 2024. So a former Letcher County deputy sheriff who pleaded guilty to R-wording a female prisoner who is on home incarceration will spend 6 months in the Letcher County jail where he formerly worked as a deputy jailer. So, okay, so currently he is deputy sheriff, and before he was a deputy jailer, and now he is going to be jailed in the same jail that he was the jailer. When I worked in prison, like they didn't even let us like I knew a guy that I worked with, like from before who had like M-worded someone. Like he worked at a restaurant that I worked at, and he like dated one of my good friends actually. But actually, this is a crazy story. There was like a 2020. You're in the restaurant industry. Shout out to you. That's what I did before I like went back to school to get my doctorate in clinical psychology. But anyway, so then he like got found guilty, and then I think he gave up his friend's name, and they both ended up going to prison. And I worked at like 3 different facilities. So every time that you would have to go to a new facility, you would have to like fill out kind of like a disclosure of like if you knew anyone that was involved in the like the Minnesota prison system at all. You know, they were like, we're not trying to judge, but we're also like not trying to set up like, you know, unsafe environments for people. And so like I disclosed like that I knew it's in. It's just kind of crazy to think about like this guy's now going to be jailed in the same like jail as he worked. Like, I mean, if that's not like, you know, some conflict of interest there, like you are working with peers and all of a sudden they're expected to like incarcerate you and like treat you fairly. Like, I feel like they'd probably like be a little less harsh and more lenient for someone like their buddy. You know what I mean? I go off on tangents sometimes. So who is on home incarceration will spend 6 months in Letcher County Jail, where he formerly worked as a deputy jailer. Ben Fields, this is a guy who was found guilty of this, who was a court security officer for the sheriff's office and worked a side job for monitoring company Eastern Kentucky Correctional Services, was sentenced last week to 7 years total, with 6.5 of that to be spent on probation. So that's for I mean, listen to that. Sentenced to 7 years total and 6.5 on probation, and the other half is going to be where he was working before. This is for like an R word of like an incarcerated. That's a vulnerable adult. Like that's the same as like, you know, taking advantage of like SAing a like disabled person or like an elderly person that like has dementia. I mean, it's like these are vulnerable people that we know like are in positions that make them extremely vulnerable to be exploited. And this guy is only, I mean, first of all, 7 years is not that much for what he did. You know what I mean? Like this is crazy. So, anyways, it says that he was indicted on it, 7 felony counts and 1 misdemeanor. The criminal charges followed a lawsuit filed by 2 women in March of 2022, both former inmates in the Letcher County Jail, where Fields worked as a deputy jailer before being hired by the sheriff's office, which they all overlap. I'm sure the like sheriff's office and like especially in these small towns and small counties, like the sheriffs for sure know that like jailers, like they're probably like all daily interacting with one another daily, you know. And I'm sure like all of the counties next to each other and stuff too are like it's not, there's not very many people that are like in these counties. So when the crimes occurred, Fields had left his job at the jail to work as a court security officer in Letcher District Court and worked for Eastern Kentucky Correctional Services Incorporated, which provided electronic monitoring devices to prisoners who have been placed on house arrest as a condition of their bail. So those are like the ankle bracelets. Prisoners are required to pay for the monitoring. The women sued Fields. So these 2 women sued Fields, Ben Fields, the deputy, Eastern Kentucky Correctional Services Incorporated, and then Letcher County Sheriff Mickey Stines, the guy who M-worded the judge in his official capacity, claiming Fields used his position to pressure them into having S with him, and that the electronic services and Sheriff Stines did not sufficiently train and supervise him. The case was filed in U.S. District Court in Pikesville and has been on hold while the criminal case progressed. This is in January. The woman claimed Fields told them he would not make them pay for the monitoring if they would do him a favor. He disabled the devices, told the monitoring company that bail conditions had been changed so the devices were not required, and then used threats of arrest to force the woman to have sex with him. When Letcher Circuit Judge James W. Kraft II asked Fields for GPS coordinates of one of the subjects for a court appearance, Fields said he couldn't locate her and filed an escape charge against her. So, like, all that's just messed up. Like, why is this guy in a position where he's choosing? Like, why do people trust him enough to be like, yeah, like, why wasn't someone supervising him and making sure that the people that are supposed to be on monitoring are on monitoring? You know what I mean? So, the Mountain Eagle does not normally identify victims of S crimes. However, one remaining victim spoke to a reporter at the paper on the record and testified to many of the same things in sworn testimony during the sentencing. The other alleged victim of a drug overdose after the suit was filed, which to me, that automatically is just like, I mean, I know that's completely plausible and that's like super sad and depressing, but also like that's just seems like good timing for these people, you know. And actually, like in a lot of other cases that have sparked my interest, like in terms of like possibly or for sure like corrupt, you know, governmental agencies and services, like they in other court cases like in Delphi in Idaho 4, like I feel like a lot of those cases are kind of similar in terms of um like dirty cops basically. It says Sabrina Atkins, 47, of Pikeville, was in jail on drug charges at the same time the crimes occurred. Said she had completed rehab and hopes to become a domestic DV counselor. She said she had a career before addiction and wants a normal life again. She says, I was clean for 18 years. I had a career. I had a family. She said that all changed when her brother, who she raised after their parents, also. She said, I started drinking. I just fell into it. She said that's no excuse. It was something I needed in my body every day. So said she spent the following 10 years in addiction and says she has now been off illegal drugs for 13 months. She said she was using methamphetamines when she was arrested. While she was no longer taking illegal drugs, she said the crimes Field committed against her have left her unable to function without medication prescribed for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. She said she has been in the psychiatric hospital several times since the incidents and continues to take trauma counseling. She said, my nightmares got so bad I had to go on medicine and probably will be for the rest of my life. She said to Fields during the video sentencing, do you know I tried to myself twice, tried to off herself. She said Atkins also accuses others of involvement in her situation and that of the other woman who filed suit against Fields. She alleged harassment by the sheriff's deputies and arrest based on false information given by Fields. Stines declined to comment, citing the continuing civil case. However, the criminal court records show at one point a warrant was issued for Atkins because Judge James W. Kraft II asked Fields to bring her to court, and Fields told the judge he couldn't find her because she had taken off her bracelet and escaped. So like he basically got caught for not following up on his job and doing something wrong, and instead of being found out about it, he actually put it on the person that he was exploiting, and she got punished for it. I mean, can you imagine? That is so fucked up. She also alleged that a male relative of Fields, this is another weird comment that I think is worth noting for sure. She also alleged that a male victim of Fields, who he introduced to her, also coerced her to have sex with him because he had pull with the court. She said that she talked to Fields on Facebook Messenger, but the other man never sent her any messages. He wasn't charged because she had no proof. So I totally believe that. There's no reason for this woman to be lying. It's pretty ridiculous that just because she didn't have a Facebook Messenger that for some reason he wasn't able to be charged. That just seems weird. But who knows? But it says that she follows up here saying that she believes that man is still doing the same thing to other women because she went to court for a hearing on a charge of driving under the influence and saw him sitting in the gallery listening to another female defendant with his arm around her. To me, this sounds like a ring of they are using this political system, and this is the thing that's weird. Why didn't the judge or the sheriff or anyone else step in and be like, why is this dude hanging out here with his arm around these women who are involved with the system that his brother has control and power over them? What the hell? And if people weren't picking up on that, it's okay, people, then it's time for you to wake up because there's some pretty messed up stuff happening right underneath your nose. She said he was right there in the courtroom asking her to go out to dinner with him. She said, I felt physically sick. Fields was accused of having with Atkins in his car, in the district judge's office, and in an elevator at the Letcher County Courthouse. So this is in the judge's chambers where he was M-worded. The grand jury on September 29, 2022 charged him with 2 counts of third-degree R, 2 counts of third-degree sodomy, and 3 counts of tampering with a prisoner monitoring device. All of those charges are felonies. Also, I just want to make a comment that, first of all, that's awful and disgusting, all of it. And also, why is sodomy separate from the R word? There's really no difference. I don't think we really need to know the specification of, where on the body. I just feel if it's all R word, it shouldn't matter. It's just weird that that's, I mean, I get, back in the day when it was, but it shouldn't be any worse or better than any other just straight up R word, So 3 charges related to the second woman were dismissed because she is now no longer alive, but the civil case is continuing with her estate along with Atkins. The court cases do not specify how she became unalive, which it says it was prosecuted by Barbara Whaley of the Kentucky Attorney General's office and was heard by Pike Circuit Judge Eddie Coleman. Court documents show hearings were held in at least 3 counties other than Letcher. Fields pleaded guilty to third-degree R-word, third-degree sodomy, and 2 counts of tampering with a prisoner monitoring device and second-degree perjury. The 3 charges related to the second woman. So it says, in return for the guilty plea, the judge followed the recommendation in the plea agreement and sentenced Fields to 5 years each for R-word and 2 tampering charges. But that time be probated for 7 years with supervision for 5. The perjury sentence for 12 months was conditionally discharged for 12 months. Fields will serve 6 months in jail and is required to register as an SO and complete outpatient SO treatment. Protective orders will be in place and effective for 10 years. Like, that's crazy. That's something else that I think is just like really notable, and like the next thing that I'm gonna like share with you guys, which is like the video of the preliminary hearing and the investigator that is questioning that, and it's just like so shady. Like, it's like, dude, how can you get away with this? This is so blatantly not fair. I recognize Miss Atkins is a victim, Coleman said. I also believe the criminal justice system is a victim in this case. When people behave this way, as Mr. Fields has behaved, it does create a story people can use when they talk about judges, lawyers, officers, and the court system. It's like, he's like, I recognize she's a victim, but what's actually worse is like all of these institutions and me and my friends. But like, you know, you gave the dude like 6 months in a jail that he like has friends working at. It's just like, how can you take yourself seriously? Okay, so keep going here. Sorry if that was a little confusing. Also, just a heads up, it is a new day and I'm recording, and there is some really loud like construction work going on in my apartment, like to the point where it's like the floor is literally like shaking underneath me, and I don't know, it sounds like they're like chopping up like huge cement out there. So they're using the video from the judge's chamber as evidence that what they're claiming is true, which is that the sheriff unalived the judge. And so at the preliminary hearing, they're trying to set up and prove there's enough evidence to charge him with that. And like the investigator comes on the stand. His name is actually, what is his name? Detective Clayton Stamper, and he said he worked for the Kentucky State Police, and he has been like worked as a detective since like 2016 or something. So they ended up showing the video. There's no sound to it, and there was obviously the victim's family in the gallery, and it was just, it's super raw and like it's heartbreaking to hear like them. It's that the victim's family has to watch their like loved one be, you know, M-word. And so when I'm going to start playing it here, it'll start right after the video clip was played, and then it's like his family kind of having like, you know, a breakdown, which is totally understandable. But I just wonder if anyone gave them a heads up. Like, I would absolutely not want to see that. Like, if someone like my dad ended up being in the same position as maybe the Judge Mullins was, and I went to court to support him in a preliminary hearing, and like out of the blue, I had to like watch him be like executed. Like, no thanks. Like, I definitely would stay out for at least the time being. And you think that they could be like just a little bit more mindful about that, and just mindful in general about the whole criminal justice system. I mean, they never really think about the victims or the victim's family. It's always just about like making sure that they get justice. But like, I would hope and think that the justice system is actually made to create a safer community. And you know, that doesn't necessarily mean locking people away in like inhumane prison systems and stuff. But anyways, I just thought that they should have definitely been given a heads up and been recommended to his family to like not watch that, because I just don't think that that's really necessary, especially so soon afterwards. But also, it's up to them. But I just think about that when I hear that. So, all right.
Is that a portion of the video? Yes. And you identify the party we saw in that video?
That was Sheriff Mickey Stines and Judge Kevin Mullins.
And also, Judge, who had your
That must be his wife, I bet. Maybe not. Maybe his mom.
Judge was also in his black robe.
Yes.
Do you know what portion of the courthouse that is?
That is the judge's chambers.
And where's that located at, physically located?
In the Letcher County Courthouse. In seconds, 15 seconds.
15 seconds. In fact,
So
the
that's
video
the sheriff.
that was taken in the judge's chambers between the meeting between Sheriff Stines and Judge Mullins,
he is like,
that video lasted much longer, correct?
notes aggressively.
Okay.
Right?
And have you had an opportunity to review the video of the prior incident?
I have.
And can you describe for us what happened immediately prior to the clip that we saw?
Sheriff Stines uses his cell phone to make some phone calls. He then borrows Judge Mullins' cell phone and appears to make a call on that. And that led to what you just saw.
Okay. So it's my understanding there were some people who were having a meeting with Judge Mullins prior to the sheriff's entry into the chambers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you identified those witnesses?
I don't know the names of them. There's about approximately 4 people in there. Then Sheriff Stines enters the judge's chambers, and everybody else clears out.
You don't know their names?
Not right off, no.
Have you prepared a report
in the process, yes.
Okay, so this is when it starts getting, I mean, he's hardly said anything, and right away it's like questionable. Like, so he said, like earlier, the part that I didn't show, he responded yes, that he was the lead investigator to the, incident. And now he's going to just say that he has like no information about anything. And to me, it sounds like he probably intentionally didn't want people to tell him that information, but I don't really know why. Like, that's the thing that's so shady about it. Like, it just seems, I don't know. Maybe you guys can give me like your thoughts about it, but yeah.
Process of preparing a report,
Yes, a lot of information.
but you've not spoken to any of those witnesses?
I'm not directly, but they've all been interviewed. There's recorded interviews of those people in the case.
Okay, so other officers have spoken with those 4 witnesses?
Yes.
And what is your understanding of what those 4 witnesses have said?
I don't recall.
You have no idea what they said?
No.
Okay. And so there's a video camera that is running in the district judge's chambers. Is that on all the time?
It's my understanding, yes.
And have you spoken with anyone about why that may be?
No. I mean, there's cameras throughout the courthouse.
Well, fair enough, but are you?
Okay, so this is something that I just thought of when he's discussing this. So he mentioned like the prosecutor is, or maybe it's the defense attorney, I'm not sure, but he's asking him, so, why was this video like even there? Like, is there other places videotaped? And so in the court case that I just read to you guys that involved the sheriff and then also his deputy who was fired because of he got found guilty of what I showed just minutes ago. Oh, it feels like so long ago because I did record it like a day ago, but actually more than that. But anyways, okay, so I'm not sure if this was necessarily included in the report that I read, but there are other articles that I have and will regarding what I'm about to say. But the reason why the deputy was able to like exploit these women was because there were no cameras like around, and it was like 3 different places that she alleged that the like victimization took place, and one of them was in the judge's chambers because there was no camera there, and then one was in the deputy's car because he probably was able to turn his camera off in there, or maybe there wasn't one if he was just like working for like the correctional like services thing. Maybe it's just like a van, who knows. But then the other place was an elevator. Did I already say that? Yeah, in an elevator, and then in judge's chambers because those are the places that don't have videos evidence. So then like it's interesting now that this guy, so it is kind of ironic that it's like now they're like pretty much the most solid evidence that they have for this M word that involves a lot of the same like characters and people in it happens to also be involving largely the camera in the judge's chamber and whether or not it was there. So that just seems weird, and it's like interesting that he's bringing it up right now. And then this is just on like another aside that I was thinking, I do think that there has been, and I mentioned this before, like a lot of trafficking rings, and I think that a lot of these people in positions of power, like especially in law enforcement and like correctional officers and detectives, like everyone that's involved with the law enforcement community, like is like in these positions of power where they can really use it to their advantage in illegal things. And I think that there is a potential that maybe this guy was like sleazy enough to like maybe get cameras in. Like, I just wonder what else is like on those video cameras.
How they're set up?
No, I mean, some of them have video surveillance and some don't.
Right, but
This one does.
generally when they have surveillance, you agree with me that that is utilized when there is a proceeding going on in chambers, correct?
It could be, yes.
Okay. I'm just asking, so this video didn't have an audio recording to it, correct?
There's no audio.
Outside of once the 4 people that were inside that we don't know their names, once these 4 people had left the chambers, were they in an area adjacent where they could hear anything that was going on?
Yes, I believe some of them did remain in the next room.
Okay. And what did they tell us?
Do what?
What did they hear?
I've not been part. I wasn't part of those interviews.
Okay. Was there any statements that they overheard?
No.
Were there raised voices?
There, one person stated that she didn't recognize him as being Judge Mullins' voice, but heard somebody say, "Help, help."
Is there any testimony that you can give us today about any statements or arguments or the content of that argument prior to the shooting?
No.
Okay. Are you the lead investigator on this case?
I am.
Okay, so as a lead investigator, I would presume that you would have secured the chambers and evidence once you arrived.
I was part of that, yes.
You were part of it, right? But you're the lead investigator, so you'd be in charge of those duties and delegating what should be done. Is that fair?
No, I don't delegate what's done.
Okay, so you're the lead investigator. What does that mean?
I'm the case officer.
Okay, so you're carrying the case. So I want to make sure I understand. Had Judge Mullins been removed from chambers when you arrived?
No.
Were you able to ascertain that he person?
We did not locate one.
You did not locate one?
No, there was not one in the chambers.
Okay. And there was none on this person?
No.
Okay. All right. Who was the first person to arrive on behalf of law enforcement to investigate?
They were already in the courthouse.
Fair enough. I'm talking about in terms of people that we may see a report from or take part in this investigation. Who would be the first person?
I believe Trooper Jason Bates was the first KSP personnel on scene.
And you spoke with him, and
I did.
he searched and did not locate a firearm?
No, he didn't search the scene, no. His
Sure.
role at that point was security of the scene.
I'm saying, but I'm just trying to answer for you said earlier that there was no firearm found.
No.
I'm wanting to know, can you tell us, was it specifically searched for a firearm?
In the judge's chambers,
Yes, sir.
there was myself, Detective Chris Collins, Detective Scott Cottrell, Detective Eric Caldwell.
Are you aware of anything so far in your investigation that would tell us there was any issues at lunch between Judge Mullins and Sheriff Stines?
No.
But someone on behalf of the KSB has spoken to those witnesses?
Yes, they've all been interviewed.
And there was nothing unusual that had arisen during that luncheon?
I was told that the judge made a statement to Mickey about, do we need to meet private in my chambers? That's all I was told.
Okay, again, based on your conversations with the officers, are you aware of any recent content that was up and could have been relevant at the time of their discussion?
I was told that Sheriff Stines had tried to call his daughter, and he had tried to call his daughter from the judge's phone also.
So, have you obtained the phone records from Judge Mullins' phone?
I don't have those in my possession yet. No.
Okay.
Okay, just real quick, I'm a little I wonder why the sheriff looked so confused about when he was talking about that. I mean, he looked really deep in thought there. So it was about them talking about, what happened immediately before the, unaliving took place. And it sounds like he has a 17-year-old daughter. And here is where some of the rumors come in. So I'll just go over these really briefly. I don't think I covered them in the beginning of the video. But it involves that, and this is all allegedly, that maybe the judge was having some sort of affair with his 17-year-old daughter, with the sheriff's 17-year-old daughter. But then what was kind of interesting about that is that they started a GoFundMe for his family. This is for the sheriff's family. So there was a GoFundMe that was started to help support his family now that he will be imprisoned, and half of the salary won't, or half of their income, or maybe all of their income won't be there anymore in the household. Anyways, so they started the GoFundMe, but on the GoFundMe description, it was interesting because this is, the sheriff's family made a point to say, if anyone, because it was really getting around that it was possible that the judge was having an affair with his underage daughter. And they actually explicitly stated in the description of the GoFundMe that that was not the case, that there had not, or I can't remember exactly what the quote was, but it basically was if you're donating on the premise that he did this because he was defending his daughter for whatever reason, that's not accurate. So then other people, and to me, and this is kind of what my theory is a little bit, but I don't know, I also maybe have other theories too, but and what other people were thinking is that he is married and that the marriage wasn't going very well, and that they were going to try to leave, the mother and the daughters. And so since the judge was involved with all these DB resource centers and chemical dependency stuff, and maybe he was speaking with the wife and daughter to help get them a safe plan to leave this guy, this sheriff, and then he found out about it, and this is just another theory, but that the sheriff found out about it, and then that's why he acted out on the judge, because and what is weird, and then when the sheriff comes out and turned himself in, I guess he said, right after he had, unalived the judge, he said something about taking my family away from me, or you're stealing my family, and that's for stealing my family away, or something like that. So it sounds kind of paranoid, but it's kind of interesting because we don't know, what's behind this, but there kind of is a lot of different, I guess, reasonable theories in terms of what could be happening. He might have done this to avenge his daughter, or that this he was doing it because he was actually like, someone who couldn't control his anger and acted out all the time. And look at what happened when someone tried to take his control away. Maybe, I don't know, this is all just, theory. Or maybe he is mentally ill and like clinically mentally ill where he's paranoid and thought that, like, I mean, that's kind of a weird statement to say, about the judge like trying to steal my family away. So anyways, those are just a little background of what the theories on with that.
We don't have a viewing of what transpired during that exchange of phones, but based upon your review of those moments prior to, when Sheriff Stines observes that cell phone, was he previously seated?
Yes.
Okay, so in the clip we saw him standing the entire time.
He was seated in front of the judge's desk.
And he looks at the cell phone. What is it? Can you describe his reaction in the video that we haven't seen?
Whose reaction?
Well, the sheriff.
You can't see his face in the video.
Okay. But is it clear that, does it appear to you that, let me rephrase this. Did he stand up after
Yes.
looking at the phone?
He stood up.
And how long after he looked at the cell phone and stood up did this occur that you played?
Just seconds.
Did you make the decision on edits today for what you were going to present? In terms of, did you make the edit or determine which portion of the video we were going to see today?
No, sir, I did not.
Both cell phones have been sent to the
Seems like he chose what information he wanted to find out, though, before he testified.
Have you gotten any early report on what was found?
No.
What was it? Were both phones still on the desk when you arrived?
The judge's phone was on the desk. Sheriff Stines' phone was on his person.
Okay. So are there photographs of, was the phone locked at that point or was it still open?
With both of you asking about both of them? Or?
Well, first let's talk about, that's right. First, I'm talking about Judge Mullins, and since it was the one that was still on the desk and presumably nobody touched it prior to you securing it, correct?
No.
So, yeah, so we'd like to know about that. Have you ascertained what was currently open on that cell phone?
No, I don't know at this point, no.
You don't know?
No.
Do you think that would be important to learn?
I hope to learn that when the report's ready, yes.
But as of today, you can't tell us what was currently open on the judge's phone.
No, sir.
Did you conduct an interview with Sheriff Stines' daughter?
I did not. She has been interviewed.
Are you aware of, who was present when she was interviewed?
Lieutenant Randy Combs and Detective Anthony Trotter.
When she was interviewed with or without her parent?
With.
So her parent was present at the time you interviewed her?
Yes, I believe. I wasn't there, but yes, I think so.
Law enforcement has not spoken to her without her parent present?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did the Kentucky State Police obtain her phone?
No.
You intend to obtain records for her cell phone number?
Possibly, yes.
Do you believe that will be soon that you'll do that?
Could be, yes.
Had you already intended to do that, or did you just respond to my question?
Well, the call should be on the judge's records, too.
Well, I understand.
And she's made statements about what occurred during those conversations.
I understand that, but I would presume that, have you ascertained whether Judge Mullins also had apps that stand outside all phone records?
I've not received those records yet. I don't know what's on the phone.
Fair enough, but did you look at the phone? Did it appear there were apps on it?
I'm not the person that's qualified to look through the phone.
Okay, but you're familiar with cell phones. They can host other forms of communication.
What's the objection?
He's asked a question before about different police officers. The detective repeatedly said he does not have a report phones. He's not looking at the phone. He can't testify to that.
That's what he asked the question, and what he can only testify what he has personal knowledge about.
Absolutely, yes, sir. Thank you.
Right.
So you're aware that phones can be used for apps such as Facebook.
Yes.
Okay, and that is not something that is captured by cell phone records. Do you agree with me?
I agree.
So in light of that, although the records may be mutually the same between Judge Mullins' phone and the sheriff's daughter, do you believe that you could also ascertain other information from the cell phone app content?
Are you asking what apps are on the phone?
Yes. Well, that was my original question.
I don't know I've not received that report yet. I don't know what apps he had downloaded on the phone.
If he has social media apps, do you intend to?
That could lead to additional search warrants, yes.
If you would also close up the finish before you move forward, and I'll try to slow down a little bit as well, okay?
Sure.
Picture. Have you determined whether there were any previous
Camera skills,
issues,
I
personal or
respect.
between Sheriff Stines and Judge Mullins?
I've heard things.
What have you heard?
Just that of this regarding the lawsuit that the Letcher County Sheriff's Office is currently involved with.
The lawsuit that involved ultimately a criminal conviction of a deputy for sexual behavior in the judge's chambers. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay, and the subject matter of that lawsuit the chambers area, that's the same chambers in which this occurred, is that correct?
I'm not familiar with the details of that case that the lawsuit resulted from.
Are you aware of any criminal reports that Sheriff Stines had made of Judge Mullins prior to this day?
No.
Did you personally observe Sheriff Stines following this video?
Did I personally observe him what?
Did you meet with him? Did you talk to him after?
He was in custody when I arrived at the courthouse that afternoon.
And at some point, did you draw any observation about his demeanor?
He was mostly calm, I thought. I mean, I talked to him, but he didn't say nothing about why this had happened. But he was calm. He was kind of afraid that basically all he said was, treat me fair. That's basically the comments he made.
Okay. He also made a statement about, I didn't see it in the citation. You're somewhere along the line, I saw.
Okay, I don't love that, you know? I mean, like I kind of talked about before, it's like, I mean, this is like cop talk, you know what I mean? These dudes have been working together forever. Like, for a cop to get arrested and to say, I hope I'm treated fair, like, I feel like that could almost be interpreted in a lot of different ways in that situation. It's just kind of a weird thing to say.
The statement being treated to him about protecting his family.
I wasn't present, but when he was taken into custody, I was told by one of the other officers that were there that he made the comment, they're trying to kidnap my wife and kid.
So that's what I was talking about before. But apparently they're trying to kidnap. So that almost, you know, I don't know. I feel like that goes along with the theory that maybe he was like, you know, involved with DV against his family, or that, you know, potentially he was paranoid. But another thing that I've been wondering about too, and I think that I heard this mentioned by like a couple of lawyers, but that there is something that you can claim called like emotional disturbance. So some of these questions might be like just kind of gathering initial evidence to maybe try to claim that to lessen his charge moving forward. So
Now, have you ascertained any evidence that this shooting was pre-planned?
No, not this time.
And would you agree that from what we've seen so far, from the evidence you've seen so far, the shooting was a reaction to what was on that cell phone in that moment? Is that accurate?
Objection, all speculation outside these scope of expertise.
Sure, I believe that if he had supported an opinion about the investigation up to this point, especially at a preliminary hearing, it could speculate.
No, saying.
Sure. So, is there anything other than the content of the phone?
what was that
This
face?
video
That was weird.
revealed to us about why this took place.
I'm actually gonna rewind that for a second because
No.
it was like a weird face.
No, saying.
Sure. So, is there anything other than the content
Weird.
of the phone that this video will reveal to us about why this took place?
No.
Does it appear that this took place as a reaction to what was happening in the chambers at that point?
I can say it occurred after a phone call was made. I don't know what was said or nothing like that. But
So fair enough. And I'm not asking you the content of any of that, but at this point, is it your theory that whatever that content was in the discussion was the impetus of the shooting?
it could be, but I don't know that for a fact.
Okay. Do you have any evidence up until this point that you have developed that would demonstrate that it was not as a reaction to what was on the phone?
No.
None whatsoever?
No.
Okay. If I had just one moment before. Did you attempt to speak to Sheriff Stines at the Leslie County Jail after the incident?
No.
Did anyone from your agency attempt to interview him?
Not to my knowledge, no.
And at that point, had he asserted his right to an attorney or anything?
No.
But nobody went back to try to talk to him or do an interview?
No.
I think I have one other question. In addition to cell phones that we discussed, the cell phone of Sheriff Stines and the cell phone that you found of Judge Mullins, were there additional phones that you were able to obtain?
There was one other phone that's currently being examined, and the basic reason it was seized was there was a text conversation between Sheriff Stines and some of his employees with the Sheriff's Office.
Okay, and that was an additional phone of Sheriff Stines.
It was a phone of, I guess she's the I don't know what her title is, but she's employed. She's not sworn. She's employed by the Letcher County Sheriff's Office. And she voluntarily gave her phone to the person that interviewed her.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, what did you explain why that was relevant or germane to your investigation?
I didn't conduct that interview, but it was, I guess it was regarding the dinner at Streetside and things that led up to I don't have those results either, so I don't know exactly what was said.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought when we discussed that earlier that you indicated there was no evidence that the conversations at the lunch.
I haven't seen those conversations yet. I've not received downloads from the phone.
Right, but I asked you if you're aware of any information that could have been gleaned from witnesses at that meeting, and as I recall, you said no, but there is some information that something was discussed at this lunch. Is that correct?
I don't know what was discussed at lunch.
I understand, but you obtained this lady that we don't know her name. You obtained her phone in an effort, or based on a belief that she would be able to demonstrate what was said at lunch. So you would agree with me. You believe that there is a witness or information that may have popped up at lunch.
There's a recorded interview with her in the case, and I'm yet to receive the downloads of the phone, so I don't know what they contain.
Has that phone been sent to forensic examination as well?
Yes.
Right, thank you. Also, that's all I have. Thank you.
Has Judge Mullins, he sent to medical examiner Boston Law House?
He was.
Have you received that report yet?
No.
Have you had an informal conversation with him regarding his cause of death?
Yes.
And what was that? The video we showed earlier, that a true and accurate copy of what you received?
Yes.
What was this copy in 1 year old?
Any objection?
And Detective, this is an ongoing investigation.
Yes, it is.
And as this ongoing investigation proceeds, you will be also interviewing more people if necessary, submitting more evidence to the lab.
Yes.
All right, you may sit down. Any witnesses for the defendant? I'll find probable cause and bind this case over to the grand jury. Anything else? Anything else before we turn court?
There's no, we're not allowed to sum up, Judge, what.
Oh, if you want to make an argument, sure.
It seems like I may change your mind,
It
Judge.
is a probable cause hearing, so, but yes,
Actually,
take your best shot.
well, so, murder under their statute, as the court knows, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but if there is an issue as to extreme emotional disturbance, then there has to be some evidence that would rebut that. And specifically, when I asked the witness today if there was any evidence to rebut that this occurred as a direct result in the moment of this observation, they have none. And I think it's just probable cause. But I think they've established probable cause for manslaughter first, not murder. Because I've heard nothing that indicates that this is not, an example of an extreme emotional disturbance relative to the fire. At any rate, Judge, respectfully, I understand the court's previous ruling, but I did want to address that with you.
No, that's fine, but there's probable cause to proceed with murder.
Sure.
All right.
Hey everyone, I'm going through a car wash right now, so it's going to be loud and probably I won't want to use this for what I'm intending it to be, but that's fine. But I really want to put out my video on I just want to wrap up. I can't believe this is so dumb. Maybe it'll be funny, I don't know. So I might have to pay attention. No, now they're drying me up. So I'm wrapping up my video with this recording that you probably can hear. And I'm just here to say that there's a lot of shit going on in this country that seems like there's a lot of corrupt police officers. And I have a lot, not a lot, but there's like a couple of other cases that I found in my research for this case that I want to talk about, but I just want this video, it's already too long, so I think I'm going to just try to make another separate video that's a lot shorter that includes those videos, because they're probably just interesting on their own, and I don't know if they're for sure connected, so I'm going to go, oh my god, there's police officers right there, that's so fucking stupid. Damn it. But that's okay, because I'm freaking going to the bar, and I was like, I don't know if I want to get some food, but I'm gonna get some food, because ACAB, bitches. Actually, he's kind of cute. So I'm gonna wrap up the video here. Thank you so much for all of you. I can't believe you're still listening to this. If you are, that's amazing. Thank you so much. My goal is 500 by the end of the year. And I just checked, and I'm like at 340. So, if you're here and you aren't subscribed, it's free. You could actually unhit the bell thing, so then you could just subscribe and never hear about me again, and it would just help me out. So if you would consider that would be awesome. Please check out the other videos that I brought up. I'm gonna be a lot better about keeping up with my channel, and I absolutely mean that, and I for sure am gonna do it. And I'm sorry to myself and to people that have watched my channel that I have not done a better job with being accountable to me and you, but I am turning a new leaf today. New me, and I'm gonna follow through on shit that I say that I'm gonna do specifically with this channel. I used to always follow. I have 10 seconds. Used to always follow through shit. If I said something, it would get done. I'm gonna start that back up. All right, peace, love. I'll see you guys soon. The police officer just came back out with food. It's 5:01, and I love you all. Bye.